Today, a significant escalation in military conflict has unfolded as the U.S. conducted airstrikes against Iran, marking a pivotal moment in the ongoing tensions between the two nations. Here's a comprehensive breakdown of the events and their implications. On July 15, 2026, tensions between the United States and Iran reached a boiling point as the U.S. launched a series of airstrikes targeting Iranian military installations. The strikes commenced around 2 a.m. local time in the Middle East, with the U.S. military confirming the deployment of F-15 fighter jets from bases in Qatar. Reports indicate that at least 15 strategic sites were hit, including missile launch facilities and drone storage areas. U.S. officials have stated that these actions were a direct response to previous Iranian strikes on U.S. assets in the region, which occurred just days prior. President Trump, addressing the nation later in the day, described the airstrikes as a necessary measure to protect American interests and personnel. This military action marks a significant escalation in hostilities, as it follows a series of tit-for-tat attacks that have characterized the ongoing conflict since early 2026. The backdrop to this confrontation lies in years of escalating tensions, particularly following the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. Over the last several months, Iranian forces have increasingly targeted American assets, prompting a reassessment of U.S. military strategy in the Middle East. The most shocking detail revealed today was the confirmation that these airstrikes were the largest coordinated attacks against Iranian targets since 2019, indicating a shift in U.S. military strategy. Unlike previous confrontations, where limited engagements were common, this operation signals a possible shift towards a more aggressive U.S. posture in the region. The impact of these airstrikes is likely to be profound, not only heightening regional instability, but also straining diplomatic relations with allies concerned about the potential for a full-scale conflict. Iran has vowed retaliation, which could lead to further escalation and a cycle of violence that risks drawing in global powers. Looking ahead, the international community must grapple with the implications of this military action, as the U.S. may face pressure to either de-escalate or reinforce its military presence in the region. In the coming weeks, the focus will be on whether diplomatic channels can be revived or if this marks the beginning of a new chapter in U.S.-Iran relations defined by increased hostilities. The immediate consequences of today's airstrikes are far-reaching, signaling a potential shift in U.S. military engagement in the Middle East. The U.S. military's actions have escalated fears of a broader conflict, with Iran vowing to retaliate against American interests in the region. This response is rooted in a history of animosity dating back to the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which has seen Iran and the U.S. at odds over various geopolitical issues. The strained relations have often been marked by proxy wars, economic sanctions, and military posturing, creating a volatile backdrop for today's events. Reports suggest that U.S. personnel in Iraq and Afghanistan are on high alert, anticipating potential Iranian attacks in response. This escalation not only endangers American lives, but also threatens the stability of the Middle East, a region already fraught with tension and conflict. The geopolitical implications are profound, with oil prices surging over 5% in response to the increased tensions. Analysts predict that continued conflict could disrupt oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical passage for global oil supply, responsible for about 20% of the world's oil trade. Furthermore, regional allies of the U.S., particularly Saudi Arabia and Israel, are closely monitoring the situation, as they may also become targets of Iranian retaliation. The average person should care about these developments, as they could lead to higher prices at the pump, increased military involvement, and a potential spike in global instability. The impact of military operations extends beyond immediate actions, touching on international relations, economic stability, and humanitarian concerns. Should military operations escalate further, civilians in conflict zones could face dire consequences, including displacement and loss of life. Additionally, the potential resurgence of extremist groups in the chaos could further destabilize the region. Looking ahead, the U.S. must navigate a complex landscape where diplomatic solutions are becoming increasingly vital. The risk of miscalculation remains high, with each side likely to engage in further provocations. As the situation unfolds, it will be crucial for policymakers to prioritize diplomacy while maintaining military readiness to avert an all-out war that could have devastating consequences for millions. The roots of the current conflict can be traced back to a series of escalatory actions and strategic failures over the past year. The ongoing tensions began intensifying in early 2026 when Iran resumed its aggressive military posture following the breakdown of the 2015 nuclear agreement. After years of diplomatic negotiations, the U.S. withdrawal from the deal under the Trump administration marked a significant turning point that altered the geopolitical landscape. In April 2026, a temporary ceasefire was declared. However, hostilities resumed shortly thereafter, with Iran targeting U.S. military bases in the region. The provocations escalated further with Iran's missile strikes against U.S. assets, igniting fears of a larger confrontation. Previous confrontations, such as the 2019 drone strike on Saudi oil facilities, illustrate a pattern of rapid escalation following provocations and demonstrate the volatility of the region. The motivations of both parties are deeply entrenched. For the U.S., maintaining regional dominance, securing oil routes, and protecting allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia are paramount. Conversely, Iran seeks to assert its influence across the Middle East and deter U.S. intervention, viewing itself as a regional power. The lack of effective diplomatic channels has driven both nations towards a military solution, with each new strike feeding into a cycle of retaliation that seems increasingly difficult to break. As military engagements continue to escalate, the prospects for a peaceful resolution appear dim. The potential for a broader conflict looms, threatening not only regional stability, but also global economic interests tied to oil supplies. The coming months will be critical in determining whether diplomatic efforts can be revived or if military actions will irrevocably define the future of U.S.-Iran relations, with both sides needing to confront the escalating stakes involved. As we look ahead, several scenarios could unfold in the coming days and weeks following recent hostilities. The tensions between the United States and Iran have escalated significantly, rooted in decades of geopolitical strife, sanctions, and military confrontations. The U.S. withdrawal from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018 intensified these tensions, leading to a series of retaliatory actions and heightened hostilities. Firstly, if Iran retaliates swiftly, we could see an increase in attacks on U.S. military installations or allies in the region, such as Israel and Saudi Arabia, potentially leading to a broader military conflict. Experts suggest that such a scenario could escalate within weeks, prompting a significant U.S. military response that might involve airstrikes or troop deployments. The ramifications of this escalation could destabilize the entire Middle East, drawing in regional powers and further complicating the global security landscape. Secondly, diplomatic efforts, although currently strained, may be hastily revived by international actors seeking to de-escalate tensions before they spiral out of control. The European Union and regional partners might push for renewed negotiations, though skepticism remains high given the history of failed talks and deep-rooted mistrust. Thirdly, the situation could stabilize if both sides opt for restraint, seeking to avoid a full-scale war that would have devastating consequences for the region. The economic impact of sustained conflict could also be profound, affecting oil prices and global markets, which are already sensitive to geopolitical instability. Observers will be watching closely for any signs of Iranian military movements or U.S. troop deployments in response to this latest round of strikes. As both nations navigate their next steps, the potential for either a renewed push for peace or an inevitable slide into deeper conflict looms large. The next few weeks will be pivotal in shaping the future of U.S.-Iran relations. As tensions escalate, what will be the outcome of this latest round of conflict? Will we see an increase in hostilities, or will diplomatic efforts prevail? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for daily deep dives into the most pressing global events.